Howdy, my name is Nonat, and boy do I have a special video for you today. I have an exclusive interview with Logan Bonner, lead designer over at Paizo. I got to pick his brain about all things Book of the Dead, and let's just say more than a few secrets might have slipped out during the interview. Secrets that go beyond Book of the Dead. But you're gonna have to watch it to find out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get...
Hello!
Hi, who are you?
I'm the blacksmith.
I'm sorry, you're the...
I'm the blacksmith!
Okay. What's that?
Oh, this is my world anvil. Ding.
World Anvil is one of the most popular campaign managers out there on the market today, and they are still adding new features years after they seem to have cornered the market. In fact, just last week on March 31st, they added a brand new feature that honestly feels like something people should have been doing the whole time. Whiteboards is a completely interactive whiteboard, a space where you can put anything you want. Articles, maps, pictures, or just draw things out. This is something that is so important to campaign design, and a lot of other similar programs have not offered a way to just write your ideas out. You can use text, you can use a pencil, you can import images, you can link to existing World Anvil articles, and use the whole thing to help organize your thoughts. If you're like me, this is super helpful. Oftentimes, organizing files and pages is not the way my brain works. I would rather just lay everything out directly in front of me so I can see it all at once. And this isn't just for the GM. You can make the whiteboard public, draw grid maps, make your own custom things, draw diagrams so your players know what you're talking about, and share things like images and articles within World Anvil. This canvas is going to help so much for those GMs that just need a more open organization style, or people who are just looking for a space to draw on while they're playing their campaigns. So if this sounds like something that could be useful to you, click the link in the description to sign up for World Anvil today using the code NONAT1 at checkout. If you subscribe to a 12-month subscription, you're only paying for 8 and getting 4 of them for free. Wait, more than that. 40% of 12. I did the math last time. I'm still screwing it up. You get 40% off a year-long subscription. That's the terms. In my brain, math is hard. Click the link. Check out World Anvil. Or the blacksmith will find you.
I'm the blacksmith!
Thank you for sponsoring us, World Anvil. Let's get on with the interview with Logan Bonner. All right, we're into it, and I am talking to Logan Bonner. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder lead designer, which means I'm kind of looking, the overhead panopticon view of the rules for 2nd edition, and leading a bunch of the books from the rulebook line, including Book of the Dead, which I was the design lead on.
Okay, so you get to look at just about everything. Are you like the final check, or are you just helping the entire time along?
It's more, I'm not looking at every single rule that goes through, but like if something is kind of weird or new, or it's a big prominent thing, one of the other designers who's the design lead on the book will come to me with it to take a look at it. So for example, if they're working on a book for the Lost Omens line and there's an ancestry in it or something, one of the other designers is going to do a design pass on it. But if it's something as big as like an ancestry, I'll usually take a look at it too. Or if it's like a new rules concept, that kind of thing. So a lot of like the like more ordinary stuff, we've done enough of them that we kind of know what a magic item in general is going to go, like what's going to be okay. So it's usually just like stuff that kind of rises to need a closer eye. I look at that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. So you just help out wherever help is needed for like clarification and whatnot.
That, yeah, and also just kind of like set the general direction for where we want the rules to go.
All right, cool. And how long have you been with Paizo? Since its inception, or?
Nope, about like almost 10 years. It's going to be 10 years in like July or August, I think.
All right. Well, Book of the Dead, clearly one of the most hyped releases for Pathfinder 2e, which is interesting because like Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears got that PaizoCon hype. But Book of the Dead, even though it hasn't had any of those really big release events, has been really talked about, from what I've seen, almost more than Secrets of Magic, especially on social media.
Yeah.
So, any insight into that?
Secrets of Magic, I think, was also like it was coming out at a weird time, and there was also just so much big stuff that had come right before it that like people had a lot going on. Book of the Dead had a little bit more of a little quieter seas around it because we've had Guns and Gears and everything come out, but it's not quite as like core rulebook, advanced player's guide, that those like huge starter books that are always like the big releases at the start of a line.
That makes sense, yeah. Everything else sort of came out in one big wave, and then when the season calmed, Book of the Dead had its own chance to shine. That's a good point, because Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears were both touted and hyped sort of at the same time. They never had their individual chance to shine. Cool. Well, how about you give us the lowdown on what exactly we should expect with this book?
So this is the book that's all about undead, and kind of one of the things we're doing now are like theme books. Like Guns and Gears is like it is guns and gears. It is machines and bang bang shooty things. And so this is kind of in that same line where it's like if you want undead stuff, buy this book, and there's going to be all the undead stuff in it. Whatever you want to do with undead, here it is. So it's got a ton of undead creatures. It's got options for characters who want to fight undead. It's got player options for characters who want to be undead or work with undead. It's got information on places where there are a lot of undead. And then it has an undead adventure. So it's just like all the undead stuff all in one place. So that we can really like dig into the concept.
Yeah, from a consumer point of view, I know I absolutely appreciate that. Like, I know what I'm gonna get when I buy this book, and it's not some vague title that just says there's stuff in this book.
Yeah.
Like, Secrets of Magic, you're getting magical stuff. So I've really appreciated Paizo's approach to that with their book design.
Yeah, we kind of switched our approach on that because the first edition books, a lot of them had themes, but some of them either like didn't really have a theme or it was kind of only being developed in one direction. So like Ultimate Intrigue, for example, had a lot of intrigue stuff, but it's also, it's also kind of limited in how deep it can go. And now that we can have Golarion stuff in the rulebook line, it gives us a lot more options with, setting things up so you can like really immerse yourself into the book and the story and get it all kind of in one place instead of like, well, this will tell you how the type of game works, but if you really want places where you can do intrigue, we need another book for that. And
while on the subject of lore, I know that Paizo has been releasing the Lost Omens line as well, which are almost like 75% lore, 20-25% mechanics. Where does Book of the Dead fall on that spectrum? More mechanics than lore, or what?
It's more on the mechanics side. Part of that's just kind of like how many mechanics we can practically do and introduce to the game. Because some Lost Omens books, like Ancestry Guide, it's like we're going to do a bigger percentage so that because of the concept of the book, but we kind of have to do those sparingly because they're just a lot more person hours of work to get them done. But the rulebook line is typically done more on the rules side. So this has a ton of rules, but we're always, trying to get better integration between the story and the mechanics. So for example, in here, there's a whole bunch of monsters, but we also have like sections within the monster entry where it's like, okay, we're going to take a moment to just talk about what mummies are like and what, the lore behind mummies, so that it's not just, it's not just like, here's some stat blocks. Okay, we did it.
Oh yeah, it's easy to say, here's a mummy, here's how they work. But yeah, to give the full flavor on, how they're created, what they're used for, that goes that extra mile. That is, really impressive. So you mentioned player options, creatures. I know we're getting a lot of information on Ustalav, yeah?
We're getting a decent amount. Yeah, we've got a section called Lands of the Dead. That's a chapter of the book that kind of talks about different undead-centered areas on Golarion, on or under in one case. And that Ustalav has a section there, and most of them are like relatively short because we want to like have a really cool piece of art and kind of give you the basics enough to get started and set your adventures there. But there are a few places that it was like, we should do a little more on this one. So Ustalav has a little bit more information on that.
Well, I have been given permission to get a little bit spoilery with a specific chapter, and I know the viewers will enjoy it. Let's talk about some of these player options that are coming with Book of the Dead. Starting with the Necromancy feat collection, I guess I would call it. It's really intriguing that y'all have designed these feats. You know, it's not an archetype, it's not a separate class. It is a list of feats available to these specific classes. Do you think this is something that y'all are going to keep doing going forward? Are we going to see anything for, like, these martial classes or anything like that in the future?
If it all kind of goes theme first. So it's kind of like, okay, we want to do necromancy stuff, and we know we want the theme to be necromancy. Now, how do we execute that? So we probably wouldn't do something that's just like, here's 4 pages of feats for martial characters. But if it was like a particular fighting style or fighting philosophy or a particular, type of like, gymnastics or something like that, right? Then we might do something where, the ranger and the rogue and the swashbuckler all get, this same batch of feats that work together. So yeah, it's kind of all theme first, and it really depends on what book it's in and the context. So like the necromancy class feats, we know we have multiple classes that kind of touch on necromancy themes, and it's like, we in theory could do something for each of them, but then it's kind of like, what other things get kicked out of the book to make room for that? And we also, especially those of us who worked on first edition, got really used to the first edition archetypes, where it's like, okay, we want to do the same concept for 4 classes, and now we have to do an archetype for each classes, right? And we kind of built second edition, so we had some easier, more direct ways to do that. Especially like, you can be a necromancer wizard, like it's a default option. You can take that school. So it's kind of like an easy way to expand on those. And then we did the reanimator archetype. If you want to be like, I am the necromancer, I raise undead, then it's like, oh yeah, now you go for this, right? If you just want to dabble in it, you can take just a feat or 2. And if you really want to have that be your whole thing, you can take the archetype.
Yeah, speaking of that archetype, which I'm super into because I just love conjuration and summons as a whole, I noticed that the dedication did something that we have not seen a lot of in 2E, and that is giving a direct flat bonus to undead summons specifically. Is this something we might see more in future 2E designs? I know for the most part, y'all have avoided these flat bonuses to keep the game as balanced as it is.
Yeah, and this one, like, this is for undead you animate getting the bonus, and we have a couple things that like give bonuses to summons, because we went fairly tight on summons to make sure that it wasn't just like an additional member of the party basically every time you cast a summon spell. So the level gap is fairly big. So this is kind of like, because you are taking this archetype and really dedicating yourself to summoning, this is a spot where it's like, yeah, this will make the numbers work better, rather than, because you're focusing on it, rather than kind of playing it a little safer when it's just a spell that anybody can use a spell slot on. Yeah,
and that makes sense. You don't want to waste your feats on this archetype and then be just as good as everybody else. So, right. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and this is specific to summons, right? So like, if you wouldn't see a feat that like gives a bonus to your Eidolon or something like that, because that's just, that's kind of a different scenario.
So there's still pretty much no plans to give inherent bonuses to the player character at all through the archetype system? Aside from the situational ones, of course.
Yeah, probably not. It's usually making up for a shortfall or something like this, where it is an area of specific focus that you're getting into, and we know you're giving up class feats for it.
Moving on, y'all have added so many new companions and familiars to this book with an entire archetype to utilize.
Yeah.
Care to expand?
Yeah, so we planned fairly early on, is like, well, when you're looking at like an undead book and you're looking at player options, you're like, what are all the cool things you want to be able to do with undead? And there's like, I want to be undead, and this, and I want to create undead, and then this is the like, I want to hang out with undead, right? And it kind of lets you tell that story of like, well, my animal companion died, but what if its bones came back and we got to, keep adventuring? So we had the undead companions and familiars in there like fairly early on. And then kind of like actually pretty far into the process, I was like, wait, we haven't done an Eidolon. so like, it was like, Mark Seifter is kind of like was a master of the summoning class, or of the summoner class. And so it was like, hey, Mark, how quickly do you think you could whip up an undead Eidolon? I'll figure out what other stuff we need to cut to make it fit in here. So that was kind of a late addition, and I was like, oh, I'll have to keep that in mind for future books.
So were there more companions and familiars that actually got cut in the final book?
There were some. I don't really remember how many, and honestly, I don't remember if it was like we cut some companions or if it was like, oh, we're gonna have to trim a page somewhere. Actually, I think what we did, we have the Undead Master archetype, which is kind of like the Beast Master from Advanced Player's Guide, except for undead companions. I think what we did was found a way to cut that from 2 pages to 1 page, so that we could add that Eidolon, if I remember correctly. We were wait, if we let you take certain feats from Beastmaster, then we can squeeze this into 1 page.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it was smart making the undead companions just work the exact same way as animal companions. Yeah. Like, sure, I guess they don't mature, but like mechanically, it makes absolute sense. And I love what I've looked at so far. Next up, we seem to be getting a lot of new stuff for existing gods, or at least some of the undead gods, as well as totally new ones. Y'all have added a ton of deities ever since like Gods and Magic and onward. Do y'all plan to keep just pumping out these deities into the system, or are we going to hit a sort of cap at some point?
I think where it makes sense, like these all were in first edition to some degree, and it was kind of like, and I think all of them, or almost all of them, were in the Gods and Magic, like the giant table in the back of the book, where it's like, they don't have a lot of description, so this is the chance to add that. So I'm not sure 100% of these. I think there might be like one of them that wasn't in that list. But yeah, it's just like, these have appeared technically in second edition, but they haven't really been described. So this was a spot to do that. And if you look at Zura, the god of vampires, our vampire archetype is a cleric of Zura, and it's has that holy symbol in a really cool piece of art. So it was kind of cool to do some of the crossover some of those bits across the book.
So we might even see some more of those gods from Gods and Magic get expansions as more and more books come out in the future then.
Yeah, I think wherever it makes sense. Like, it's probably going to be, if it's a book on blank region, we'll detail the gods of that region in more detail. I do know I'm outlining a book that would introduce some new powers that literally had not appeared before. But we'll see how that goes, because that's still an early process.
All right, well, let's touch on the end of the chapter and what a ton of people are hyped for. Undead PCs, complete with negative healing. What else can we expect from undead PCs?
So most of the undead PCs kind of take the approach that's like, well, you died, and now you come back as undead, and it's an archetype. So that if you died and came back as a ghost, you take the ghost archetype and you get some ghostly stuff, and it's balanced to a PC instead of a monster. So that it still works with adventuring normally, except for heal spells and whatnot. There was one exception, which was the skeleton, where it's like the skeleton doesn't really necessarily have a lot in common with you. So we did the skeleton as an ancestry, so you can kind of go like, okay, what bones I got? What bones am I working with? And build out your skeleton that way. So there's also an option in here, like if you want to say, okay, I want to start at first level as an undead, the GM can go with that option to kind of say, okay, we're going to make an exception to the standard rules in this and kind of treat it like a class archetype, essentially, and say, okay, you're going to start out as a zombie or a ghost or whatnot.
So when you say it works like an archetype, is it going to cost a class feat, or an archetype that's going to cost an ancestry feat?
It's going to cost a class feat. Yeah, they're kind of at the level of class options, so they're working in that same kind of standard way that archetypes normally do. We kind of looked at like the main types of undead and tried to squeeze as many in as we could. So we've got the ghost, the ghoul, the lich. That one is a little special because, like a lich, you can't just be a second level lich. You're going to have to wait till 12th level to get into lichdom, just like the liches in the bestiary do. The mummy, the skeleton ancestry, the vampire, and the zombie. So this book introduces kind of the smart zombie, and we have some of them in the monster section, and then the archetype kind of assumes you're a smart zombie instead of a mindless zombie.
So there's no rules to play as a mindless PC.
No, you can have a zombie companion who does not have a functioning human mind. But if you want to be one, you'll just have to role play that. I think. I guess you could use voluntary flaws and just nuke your
Dump
intelligence. Yeah.
Oh, well, that is too cool. Well, without getting into more spoilers from other chapters, this was really cool. Thank you so much, Logan, for taking time out of your busy day to tell us more about the book. If this is going live in early April, when are we seeing the book's official release?
That's a great question.
I can just put it up on screen.
Yeah, just put up on screen, because there are a lot of like with supply chain stuff. Some books have been delayed and things, and I'm not quite sure where Book of the Dead is at right now.
Well, hey, Logan, anything you want to plug? Any personal projects? Anything that you'd like to throw at the end here?
I'm on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bonner. If you want to pick up something I did in my spare time, you can get the Panol Ancestry on DriveThruRPG or itch.io. It is all proceeds go to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition and Mission. It's a charity with a very long name, and I hope I got it right. It's pretty close, and it will let you play kind of a possum person.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Logan. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.